Hello, hockey fans, and welcome to another episode of Anatomy of a Season, the show where we pick a given hockey team from a given season and go month by month, game by game of how their season unfolded, and of course what led up to said season. Well, in our last episode, we covered a Cinderella run of the 1990-91 Minnesota North Stars, and now we're going to cover a team who at the time of the North Stars run were the NHL's abysmal wonders, but we're fast forwarding to the 1995-96 season to cover. Yes, indeed. The Colorado Avalanche. Just look at this happy bunch. I mean, this is a welcome change from the group photos that were taken a year prior for a team I covered on this channel, the 1989-90 Quebec Nordiques. If you haven't watched that video, it's one of the most popular on this channel, and it's actually going to be a great companion piece for this video. Check it out before you watch this one, if you haven't already, and the link is in the description as well in the top right corner. But of course, to lead up to this video, I'm still going to tell you the backstory. After the horrendous season of 12-61-7 in 1989-90, despite bolstering future Hall of Famers Peter Stastny and Michel Goulet, they were both traded during that season and embarking on new paths in New Jersey and Chicago, respectively. Neither would win a cup, however, as their careers came to a close. Goulet's career came to a premature end, while Stastny retired nearing 40 years old. Both, however, been enshrined in the Hall of Fame, will forever be synonymous with Quebec's highly entertaining 1980s core. They also had Hall of Famer Guy Lafleur. Despite showing some brief flashes of his old self, he missed half the season due to injury, and the 1990-91 season will be his last. They were led by a young superstar by the name of Burnaby Joe Sakic, who was the one reason Quebec fans were able to cheer at all. He was coming off a breakout 100-point season in just his second year. But also the Nords got some great news in 1989. By first overall pick Mats Sundin, he finished his commitments to the Swedish Hockey League and will join the team for the 1991 season. But their forward core was still lacking depth, and they also needed stars. Tony Herkus, yes, I got his name right, so stop getting on my ass, was reliable, but he wasn't a game changer. They were also trying to hang on a veteran Tony McKegney, and Mike Huff had size and toughness, but not much else. They're hitting their hope on a third-round draft pick, Stefan Morin, to emerge, and as they have a lot of toughness as well with veteran Claude Lozelle and Paul Gillis. And yes, they have a lot of guys who amass penalty minutes, including one of them being their captain, defenseman Stephen Finn, who was a fan favorite in Quebec, but Stevens is just sad. The Nords did make a great move acquiring Craig Willanen, who I mentioned in the video for the 1990 Nordiques, and with their top defensive prospect Curtis Leschyshyn shows promise, they need a better core to evolve with, and so does he. They also pin their hopes on hard-hitting Brian Fogarty. In net, things are a mess. These youngsters are in a bad situation. Ron Tugnut, for one, is supposed to be the future of this team, while they're trying to develop Stefan Fiset. Well, but being such an abysmal team means they get the first overall draft pick in the 1990 draft of Vancouver, and so they take their old Ontario native and member of the Cornwall Royals right winger Owen Nolan. He brings size, toughness, a lot of aggression, strong skating, solid shooter, and fearlessness above all. Though it seems as though the last thing the Quebec Nordiques needed was more penalty minutes, Nolan amassed more than 450 in his 2 seasons in the OHL. But he had 85 each in goals and assists for 170 points in 120 games total. He was OHL's Rookie of the Year in 1988-89 and helped the Royals to their deepest playoff run since 1981, the days of Dale Hawerchuk, went all the way to the semifinals. In the 1989-90 season, he had 51 goals, 111 points, and the Nords needed more strength on the wing, however, and they'd get it with Nolan. He was also a first-team All-Star, and with the fall of the Iron Curtain, many teams are taking players that they expect to defect. In this draft, the Nords took Andrei Kovalenko. New general manager Pierre Paget and coach Dave Chambers, who's coming off as an assistant for the North Stars and has vast international and vast collegiate experience, is up for an unenviable task. Well, the Nords went from abysmal to simply god-awful, that's at least up one level, with 16 wins in the 1990-91 season. Sakic was carrying a pretty unfair load, but showing immense leadership. He had another 100-point season. Sundin had a decent rookie year. Nolan did not, as many felt the development system was letting him down and he should have spent another year in junior. But hey, at least this year they only used 5 goalies rather than the 7 that they used the prior year, and it looked like as if there's going to be no end of misery in sight for this team. Paget made a few trades during the regular season, not getting much in return, but dropped some deadweight, however, shockingly parted with veteran blue liner Joe Sakic. And he added veteran goaltender Jacques Cloutier, who made very little difference. They also parted ways with veteran Paul Gillis, and now they were again the worst in the league, meaning they get number 1 pick in the draft for the 3rd straight year. But the 1991 NHL draft, as I'm sure a lot of you watching this already know, there was a generational talent available, with the most hyped seen since a finesse youngster in Quebec named Lemieux was making waves in 1984. His name, of course, was Eric Lindros. Gretzky is already the Great One. Lemieux, who just won his first Stanley Cup in 1991, was deemed as the Magnificent One. Eric Lindros was deemed as the Next One. And it was a no-brainer the Nordiques were going to take him. A towering presence at 6'4", over 230 pounds, was as hard-nosed as they come. Not afraid to use his size. He can hit you with a nice check. He can intimidate you. He can power his way to the net. He had a tremendous puck handling abilities, was a superb passer and setup man. Could make a great shot attempt from anywhere and had slick moves similar to Mario in many ways. He was a complete package. He was a coach's dream. But Lindros had a problem. And that was team owner Marcel Aboud, I don't know. Anyway, rumors about it for years that Lindros didn't want to play for the team because they were so bad and that his dad interfered in his proceedings. But years later, Lindros said Marcel was the sole reason he wouldn't play for the team. But the media spun it saying Lindros hated French Canadians. He hated the culture and the team and their fans. He's adamant to this day that it is not true. Some liken this also, however, to Mario Lemieux's situation with Pittsburgh in 1984, and didn't appreciate the way the organization did business. And some felt the Nords would try to work it out with Lindros like Pittsburgh eventually did with Mario. Lemieux refused to make his way to the Penguins table and put on the team jersey. Lindros simply just wouldn't wear the jersey. But of course, they took Lindros, and again, it'd be crazy not to despite how things were going. As I said, he was everything somebody would want in a hockey player. 185 points in 82 games in 2 seasons with the Oshawa Generals. Lindros truly broke out in the 1990 OHL playoffs with 38 points in 16 games, leading the Generals to the J. Ross Robertson Cup, that was the OHL's top prize, and then went on to the 1990 Memorial Cup in Hamilton, winning that as well, making the tournament all-star team in the process. The hockey world took notice, and in 1990-91, 71 goals, 78 assists, and all that, 149 points in just 58 games. The top junior player in Canada, CHL Player of the Year. First team All-Star, the Red Tilson Trophy as OHL MVP, the Eddie Powers Trophy as a league scoring champion. And on the international side, 2 World Junior Golds, including being named to the All-Star team of the tournament's top forward in 1991. And true to his word, he didn't put on the Nordiques jersey. He kept it folded over his arm, shook hands with some of the Nordiques management, which was one better than Lemieux did in '84. But as the 1991-92 season was about to commence, it was clear Lindros wasn't reporting to the team and no deal had been signed, as the Nords now held the most expensive bargaining chip in pro sports. But as the season was getting underway, Lindros was still not playing in the NHL. Well, the Nords went from god-awful to simply plain awful, again improving to 20 wins! Wow! Well, at this rate, they'll be good in about a decade, maybe longer. But Chambers was fired after 18 games. Paget took over as coach. And again, Sakic had an awesome year, 94 points. Nolan shocked many with a great sophomore year, leading the team with 41 goals. Sundin had an excellent year, and veteran Craig Veslowski, acquired from Buffalo, had a productive year too. The rest of the forward core did not. Despite acquiring strong two-way forward and veteran Doug Schmale, and former Islanders star forward and playoff heavyweight John Tonelli during the experience, who brings a lot of playoff experience, mind you that doesn't help when you don't make the playoffs. The lone bright spot on the defense was Russian import Mikhail Tataryanov, and hey, they only used 4 goalies this year. There's much to be said about progress. The Nords, however, were happy to have Soviet superstar Valery Kamensky join the club, as Nords drafted his rights back in 1988, a solid left-winger who amassed 208 points in 329 games in the Soviet pros. In terms of international tournaments, he won an Olympic gold in 1988 games in Calgary, 3 World Championship golds in 1986, 89, and 90, a silver in 1987, a bronze in 1991, where he was named to the tournament All-Star team. He also played in the infamous 1987 Canada Cup tournament. Paget made a good deal during the season to win the rights of Scott Young from the Penguins, who was playing for the U.S. national team at the time and also playing pro hockey in Italy. An 11th overall pick by the Hartford Whalers in 1986, and despite a couple good seasons at Hartford, he wasn't really evolving to their liking. He was traded to Pittsburgh in 1990-91, and was a productive grinding forward in the lower 6 lines going forward, and got himself a Stanley Cup ring. In the time in the NHL, he's had 165 points in 240 games, not bad. However, he was an abysmal minus 57, but did better in his short time with the Penguins. He opted to play for Italy in the 1990-91 season for HC Bolzano with 22 goals, 17 assists, 39 points in 18 games. He played 10 games for the U.S. national team and represented them in the 1992 Olympics in Albertville. He could add depth to their lineup with versatility and almost in the vein of a Bob Pulford in some ways. But as the 1992 NHL draft approached, they still held Lindros' rights without a deal being made. Lindros, in the time since his drafting, well, he has won the Canada Cup alongside the NHL's best in the fall of 1991. Played for Canada's national team, won an Olympic silver medal in 1992, Canada's first medal since 1960 in hockey, played in his 3rd straight World Junior Tournament and played in some games for Oshawa, still showing dominance. His stock has only rose in value, making him even more valuable. But the Nords came to terms that he was never going to play for them and made serious attempts to make a deal. At the 1992 NHL draft in Montreal, a record audience watching on TSN waited with bated breath to see if a deal would be made. The only really good picks the Nords made in this draft was goaltender Manny Fernandez, who had a decent NHL career, and Anson Carter, who had a really good career himself, but neither would suit up for this team ever. Rumors were flying about deals being made, including one with the Rangers, but it was deemed not legal by the NHL higher brass. Despite draft day going by without a trade, it was finally, 10 days later, a deal was made. On June 30th, 1992, the Quebec Nordiques sent their rights to Eric Lindros to the Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for the rights to Swedish import Peter Forsberg, who was taken 5 picks after Lindros in 1991, All-Star defenseman Steve Deschene, another defenseman in Kerry Huffman, two-way forward and former first-round draft pick Mike Ricci, All-Star goaltender Ron Hextall, plus first-round draft picks in 1993 and 94, and future considerations and $15 million cash. Future considerations would be enforcer Chris Simon. You have to tip your hat to Paget Inobu on this one. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. I probably am. They got everything they needed in Lindros. Let's start with the goalie. And indeed they have an all-star goalie at last in Ron Hextall. During his time in Philly in 6 seasons, he amassed a record of 130, 110, and 31. A pretty good 3.28 goals against average, and a good 891 save percentage. He's amassed 30-plus wins 3 times in his rookie year in 1986-87, led the Flyers all the way to the 7th game of the Stanley Cup Finals in losing effort, and was still named the Consummate Trophy winner as playoff MVP. He was also that year's Vezina Trophy winner as the league's outstanding goaltender and a first-team All-Star. The Flyers hit a lull, however, as the 90s commenced, and he was trying to hold it together. He still played very well on several nights, but his 1991-92 season, he was 16, 21, and 6, not so good 3.40 goals against average, and a meh 883 save percentage, but he did have a career high in 3 shutouts. But he's still seen as an elite netminder, just not on a team that's going anywhere, and could help his set in the process as Tugnut was traded to the Oilers. And now we go to the defensemen, where the Nords also need a great deal of help. First, Steve Deschene, an undrafted defenseman who shined with the LA Kings for 5 seasons from 1986 to 1991, a big part of the emergence of the Gretzky era in La La Land. He was our top offensive defenseman, was great at leading a rush, excellent at power play, great at puck control, had 113 goals, 235 assists for 348 points in 460 games. And he was an excellent plus 49 in his 6 NHL seasons. He was also quite good in the playoffs with 39 points in 43 games, but has yet to make it past the second round. He has played in 2 NHL All-Star games in 1989 and 90, was traded to the Flyers for the 1991-92 season where he had 18 goals, 38 assists for 56 points, 78 games, but was a career low -7. He missed the playoffs for the first time, but either way, he's a big addition to this North squad. The other defenseman in the deal, Kerry Huffman, who was a first-round draft pick for the Flyers in 1986, a traditional stay-at-home defenseman who can lay on some good hits, play a clean style, and some felt he hadn't really reached his full potential yet with his size. Perhaps he could evolve into his liking of a Larry Robinson. Hasn't panned out that way, but he has shown against some spark. He won a spot on the team in 1987-88, but the Flyers felt his game wasn't developing. He spent significant time in the minors playing for the AHL Hershey Bears, where he worked to improve, where he played 77 games, amassing 50 points. He won a spot on the team, however, full-time in 1991-92, playing 60 games, had 14 goals, 18 assists for 32 points, and was a +1. And here's a huge grab of the deal, forward Mike Ricci, who was an elite junior prospect in the 1990 NHL draft, taken 4th overall by the Flyers, an imposing two-way forward who was the CHL Player of the Year in 1990, the same award Lindros would win a year later. As a matter of fact, he won most of the big awards the year before Lindros did. Also, he has great leadership qualities, and in 2 NHL seasons, he has amassed 41 goals, 56 assists for 97 points in 146 games, but he was a -18. He had 56 points in 78 games in the 91-92 season, and will give the Nordiques much-needed forward depth. And we'll have more on Peter Forsberg later on. Well, this is the lineup Nordiques fans have been craving. In addition to the 4 members of the trade, sans Forsberg that is, this lineup, as well as Scott Young joining the team, they could go from awful to even as high as mediocre. Maybe they could skip a few steps. As a matter of fact, they skipped a lot of steps, maybe even half a dozen or more. They finished 47, 27, and 10 for 104 points. Oh my goodness. Their best regular season in franchise history. Their first time reaching 100 points. They finished 5 points back of the Bruins for second place in the Adams division, clinching their first playoff berth since 1987, the year Sakic would be drafted in a few months. Speaking of Sakic, he had a third 100-point season, but Sundin was the big star with 114 points. Nolan played very well. Ricci was a great addition. Kovalenko and Rachinski were solid. Young amassed 30 goals, and they overcame Kamensky's injuries, but he still played well when he was healthy. Their defense was the best it looked in years. Deschene had a career high in points. Curtis Leschyshyn had a breakout season at long last. Huffman played pretty well. Alexei Gusarov was great. And the youngster by the name of Adam Foote showed great promise.
Hextall was solid in goal, albeit not great. But what a Cinderella story. Then they renewed their Battle of Quebec rivalry with the Habs in the first round. And boom! Scott Young scores an OT. Boom! They dominate the Habs 4-1 to take game 2. OT in game 3. The Nords would lose, and they'd lose again, and then lose in overtime again, and then get throttled in game 6. Well, so much for that. That being said, the turnaround of the Nords was superb, and the future, it was finally bright in Quebec, and the Lindros trade was a huge part of that. Some say Page's weakness as a coach, which it did seem the past during his time with the Rangers and North Stars, is showing. Many feel that's one of the reasons why the Nords got eliminated so quickly, is because he was outcoached by Montreal's Jacques Demers. But for the 1993 NHL draft, they were, ready to keep up this fast progression, as the Lindros trade the Flyers resulted in the Nordiques picking 10th overall, taking goaltender Jocelyn Thibault from Sherbrooke. During his time in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, he amassed a 48-21-6 record. His final year was sensational. He was 34-14-15. The goals against average is under 3, save percentage of nearly 900, and 3 shutouts. As he does with the Nordiques, felt Hextall simply wasn't going to be their guy going forward, and didn't see him as part of their long-term plan. So, the day of the draft, the Nordiques sent Hextall to the Islanders for another goaltender, Mark Fitzpatrick, who would never play a game for the Nordiques and was actually picked up by the Florida Panthers, the expansion Panthers. And they exchanged first-round draft picks, allowing the Nords to pick again at number 14, and this would be a good one. They took Adam Deadmarsh from the Portland Winterhawks to the WHL, a powerful winger who can score big goals in key moments. Deadmarsh gives the Nords more toughness and depth and grit, and could very well help complete this forward core. With Portland in 2 seasons, at this point, he has 63 goals, 66 assists for 129 points, and 126 games played. He represented Team USA at the 1993 World Juniors. He came off a season of 33 goals and 69 points and amassed over 100 penalty minutes. But he spent a couple more years in junior before coming up to the club. Either way, Deadmarsh was secured by the Nords. Also, not long before the draft, to add more depth to their forward core, they acquired more playoff experience, Martin Jelena from the Edmonton Oilers. But things crumbled in the 1993-94 season. The steps the Nords made the previous year, they went back a few, and went from excellent to pretty bad. Sakic again was playing the best he could. He still averaged over a point a game along with Sundin, but the latter of whom took some criticism. They suffered a terrible setback with Owen Nolan being injured, only playing 6 games a year. Kamensky played very well, as did Young and Ricci. But the rest of the team seemed to be a letdown. Steve Duchesne didn't play a single game for the Nordiques, and was traded in the new year to the St. Louis Blues for Garth Butcher, Bob Bast, and Ron Sutter, and they pretty much went to make it past the season with the Nordiques. And the media was referring to the Nords as the clear-cut losers of the Lindros trade now, as Eric was emerging as a superstar in Philly. The Sishin and Wolanin were carrying a very now lackluster defense. Their goaltending was still inconsistent. And they finished with a 34-42-8 record, a pretty bad setback. And ownership grew tired of Page. Despite all the good he's done for the club, he was let go. And on board was a new GM, and Pierre Lacroix, who used to be one of the most powerful player agents in the game. And they hired a new coach. 33-year-old Marc Crawford was hired. He's a minor league journeyman in his professional career, and played 176 NHL games as mostly a part of the Canucks system. He had spent time coaching the AHL the last few seasons. This wasn't seen as a major move for the Nordiques, and they made very little waves in the headlines, also many feeling Lacroix's hiring wasn't going to be much of anything either. And now they were calling the 92-93 Nordiques season a fluke. They've now lost the Lindros trade apparently, as Hextall, Duchesne, and Huffman were now all gone. Ricci was playing well, but wasn't seen as a game changer. As for Forsberg, well, he was finally about to enter the NHL as he signed a deal with the Nordiques. And this was huge, 151 games in the Swedish league. He scored 62 goals, 87 assists for 149 points. It was coming off leading Sweden to an Olympic gold medal in the 1994 Winter Games in Lillehammer, their first gold medal ever. And on top of that, he had success at the World Championships, winning gold in 92 and silver in 93. But his best was at the World Junior Tournaments, where in 1992 he helped Sweden to a silver and did the same again in 1993. But in 93, he smashed World Junior records, scoring 31 points. The only one who's even come close since then is Canada's Connor Bedard with 23 points in 2023. At the 1994 draft, the Nords did quite well, taking Chris Drury and Milan Hajduk, but their story does not really begin on this video. But they would be key to the team for many years to come. They also drafted goalie Tim Thomas, who in 2011 would backstop the Boston Bruins to a Stanley Cup, but never played a game for this organization. They also added Stefan Yell to their minor league system, a star with the Oshawa Generals, who had the pressure of succeeding Lindros as the top center and was drafted by the Devils in 92. Lacroix and Crawford, however, knew this defense needed help in the worst way. And they got it in a draft day trade on June 28, 1994. They traded veteran Ron Sutter of the famous Sutter family dynasty to the New York Islanders, along with that year's first-round draft pick in exchange for the Isles' first-round draft pick, and all-star defenseman Uwe Krupp.
The Nordiques actually drafted Wade Belak, who more better be known as a Maple Leaf in the future. The Isles drafted Brett Lindros, yes, Eric's brother. Krug was probably the first German-born NHL star taken back in the 1983 draft by the Buffalo Sabres, as Scotty Bowman, who was the GM of the Sabres at the time, continued to show he was way ahead of the international curve. A huge 6'6", he joined the NHL in 1986, played 5 full seasons in Buffalo, always evolving and learning the fine aspects of the North American game. He became a reliable shot blocker, wasn't afraid to get up close to the opposition, and it culminated in him playing his first NHL All-Star game in 1991. However, what would be a 6th season with the Sabres, he was part of a blockbuster trade that was, of course, the LaFontaine-Turgeon deal, and he went to the Islanders, where he spent 3 seasons, and was key in the Islanders' miracle playoff run in the conference finals in 1993. He's also represented his homeland twice at the World Championships. He's played 507 NHL games, a really good plus 49, and despite being a more traditional defenseman, he had pretty good numbers offensively, with 150 assists total and 197 points. But he's coming off an injury-plagued season where he missed 43 games, but was still very productive when healthy. This was a great move and a huge asset to the Nordiques defense, but that wasn't the only deal they made that day, and this one was gigantic. They parted ways with Matt Sundin, one of the men they hoped to build their future and hopeful success around. Veteran defenseman Garth Butcher, left winger and Olympic silver medalist Todd Warner, who was actually 4th overall picked in 1992 but never played a single game for Quebec, and another first-round draft pick. And they were sent to the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange. The Nordiques get another first-round draft pick, Landon Wilson, who was the Leafs first-round prospect in 1993, defenseman Sylvain Lefebvre, and the Leafs team captain, a man who would become an icon and beloved folk hero in Toronto, gritty scoring forward Wendell Clark. Neither draft pick really panned out, but Lefebvre was kind of a steal in the deal. Not an all-star, but reliable to help a defensive core. He was undrafted and had to fight to his way into the NHL and eventually made it to the Montreal Canadiens system. After 2 successful seasons in the minors, he would end up playing 3 seasons in Montreal before being sent to Toronto in 1992. He spent the last 2 seasons there. He's a traditional defenseman, has played 365 games as well as 58 playoff games, and is a plus 33 in 1993-94, was 10th best in the NHL. So this is a good grab for the Nordiques. And now we go to Wendell Clark. Okay, before you Leaf fans get all pissy, yes, Wendell was a really good hockey player when he was healthy, and that was few and far between. He was a tremendous leader and defined the term playing with heart. I will not take that away from him. He was also a really good goal scorer. He was tough, never backed down from anyone, and I understood why he's so loved by the Leafs Nation. Plus, he's also coming off a career year, 46 goals and 76 points, and has been a beast in the playoffs as they made back-to-back runs to the Western Conference Final. But he's also a liability. His style was an asset as well as a detriment. He was highly injury-prone. And while he was an impressive 208 goals, 463 games, he missed 265 games as an awful minus 72. But in all fairness, the Leafs were pretty awful when they drafted him first overall in 1985, and they remained that way for quite some time until the last couple seasons. But he stuck with them, and in the last 2 seasons, they rose along with Doug Gilmour. And hey, he has over 1,300 penalty minutes and brings more toughness to the Nordiques, but then he felt that Sundin was still a generational talent. People felt that Leafs general manager Cliff Fletcher played Lacroix like a fool here. However, the Nordiques were facing obstacles, and one of them was the entire league, and the lockout that delayed the season until the start of late January 1995. But there was a much bigger problem even than that for the Nordiques, as the fact that their time in Quebec could be very well running out. The Nordiques were the smallest market in the NHL and the second smallest pro sports market in all of North America. Revisionist history will try to tell you that the team had a small fan base. Nope. Le Colisée was actually packed to the gills more often than not, even during their bad days. But the arena was an issue. It was out of date, and they needed a new venue. Team owner Marcel Aubut, I hope, couldn't get the finances for one. Fans packing the arena was all they really had in the grand scheme of things. The Canadian sports market was in very bad shape in 1995, to the point where the Nordiques were the only NHL team struggling to make it. The Habs and Leafs never really struggled, but that's because they had the tradition on their side. But the Canucks actually were doing pretty well at this point, too. But Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, and even Ottawa, who'd only entered the league in 1992, were just barely getting by. But at least Ottawa had a new arena on the way. Also, the city of Quebec was much more predominantly French than the city of Montreal. There's pretty much very little to no English media coverage for the team, which was also beginning to hurt the club as well. It was looking bad in La Belle Province, but be that as it may, the Nordiques were determined to make this season count. And they did! In the strike-shortened 48-game season, they went 30-13-5. Peter Forsberg, Rookie of the Year, taking the Calder Trophy. Marc Crawford, Coach of the Year, winning the Jack Adams Trophy. Best record in the Eastern Conference, Sakic, 62 points in 47 games. Owen Nolan returned with a vengeance, 30 goals. Young, Ricci, Kamensky all played very well. Wendell Clark wasn't all that bad either. Denmark showed some promise in his rookie season. The defense, Uwe Krupp was a beast. Lashishin was great. Adam Foote was superb. Wolanin was still reliable. The goalies were the best the Nordiques had seen since the days of Dan Bouchard. Vincent Thibault made a great team. So bring on the playoffs. Bring on the Stanley Cup champion Rangers. Bring on losing again in the first round in 6 games. Yes, despite all this and the fact that the Rangers had a poor regular season, they still had massive playoff experience on that club. The Nordiques were still lacking a lot in that department. Marcelo Booth sought a financial bailout to help his team's finances to keep them in Quebec, and fans were hopeful that that would happen due to the season they had.
It did not. Many feel had they at least made it to the Stanley Cup final, things may have been different, but we will never know. But the misery continues, and long-suffering team captain and franchise forward Joe Sakic has now played 7 seasons, made the playoffs twice, never made it past the first round, totaling 12 games. Sure, most people with common sense and logic knew this was not his fault, but of course, his leadership is being called into question by the media. And now the city he called home was no longer where he would live. The fans he loved, he now had to leave behind. And after 23 years, 16 of which were spent in the NHL, the Quebec Nordiques were no more. An investment group from Denver made the purchase. And now, this is where our story kicks in to the next gear. Yes, Denver. The NHL failed there once already. By 1976, only 2 teams ruled the roost. And that was, of course, the Denver Broncos of the NFL, who never made the playoffs once since their obsession in 1960. They had decent attendance still. And then the ABA, the American Basketball Association, pretty much parallel to the NBA with the WHA was the NHL. Then the Denver Nuggets, who were actually quite popular, but Denver wasn't seen as a strong sports market. But then 1976-77, the ABA had folded, and the Denver Nuggets entered the NBA, giving them even more attention, and their following grew. And that's also when the Kansas City Scouts of the NHL, after 2 horrendous seasons, moved to Denver and became the Colorado Rockies. They sucked badly. Oh, so badly. Almost on par with the Nordiques teams I mentioned in this video and the one I did in 1989-90. But by 1977, the Broncos started getting good and even made it to the Super Bowl thanks to their Orange Crush defense. The Nuggets maintained a huge following. The Rockies still sucked. Fan attendance was meh. Ownership was good. GMs were and their coaches were By 1982, the city cared so little, and they moved to New Jersey, where they won their first Stanley Cup in 1995. The city of Denver did very well with the Broncos and Nuggets, thanks to the rise of QB John Elway and Nuggets big star future Hall of Famer Alex English. And despite their lack of championships, even with the Broncos making 3 Super Bowls, their following still stayed huge going into the 1990s, and their market had grown significantly. In 1993, the Colorado Rockies, the Major League Baseball team that is, had arrived. So with Denver's sports scene thriving more than ever, many felt an NHL team returning would work this time. And considering the season the Nordiques had, it was a good bet. Until the 1995 NHL draft rolled around, the Denver NHL club didn't have a name, and this draft wouldn't really be their strongest lineup, but this was also one of the weakest draft classes in quite some time, maybe even of all time, with Jerome McGinley being the only really big highlight. The group would only have 43 total games played for this club, split between goaltender Marc Denis and defenseman Dan Smith. Brent Johnson would never play a game for this team, but he did play 309 games in his career. Lacroix and Crawford, however, were still emphasizing depth and adding more to their lower 6 forward core, and added free agent veteran Troy Murray, who has played 13 seasons in the NHL, 2 stints with Chicago, totaling parts of 11 seasons, played 2 seasons for the Jets, and has had a brief stint with the Ottawa Senators, and is coming off a 13-game spell with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He plays 851 games in the NHL at this point, and won the Selke Trophy, actually, as the league's top defensive forward in 1986, and received votes on 7 other occasions. He has notched 563 career points and is a career plus 38. He also has 105 games of playoff experience and has made it to 4 conference final appearances. He'll be counted on to improve the penalty kill, which was mediocre last season. But the story, 2 days after Murray's big signing, was the name was finally revealed. On August 10th, 1995, the Colorado Avalanche were born. Season ticket sales were strong. The promotional media team did very well, delivering the right hype.
But many people are still skeptical that hockey can succeed in Denver. But either way, the team has a new name, but the goal is still to grow as they've been doing. The odds makers, however, seem to think the Colorado Avalanche had what it took to be a championship contender, as they were tied with the third best odds of winning it all, with Brett Hull and the St. Louis Blues, and being coached by Mike Keenan, and the defending Stanley Cup champion New Jersey Devils. Ahead of them were the Penguins, who were stacked to the gills, and Mario Lemieux was returning to the team after a year off, and the Red Wings were given the best odds, and they too were stacked to the gills, and had just made it to the Stanley Cup final the year prior, and have been, pardon the pun, waiting in the wings for a few years now as top contenders. But with the season just 3 days away, the Avs made a shocking move as a three-way trade was made. The Avs decided that Wendell Clark wasn't going to be the big asset going forward and sent him to the Islanders, who sent clutch scoring forward veteran Steve Thomas to the defending champion Devils, who gave Colorado Claude Lemieux. Wow, this was quite the deal. Now, granted, Wendell Clark is much tougher than Claude Lemieux, I'll admit that, but Claude was pesky and could still get under the skin of his opponents. He was also a really good goal scorer. He had 222 career goals, 448 points in 634 games. It was a good plus 35. He has struggled in the regular season the last couple seasons, but he was playoff MVP as the Conn Smythe Trophy winner in the Devils' Stanley Cup win, with his 13 goals leading the Devils to the Cup. And that's the main reason why the Avs went from adding more playoff experience. He's a tremendous clutch goal scorer, and his first Stanley Cup came as an unheralded rookie for the Habs in 1986, where he scored 2 OT winners and 2 other game winners. He became a very popular fan favorite in Montreal, but was traded in 1990, and has spent the last 5 seasons with the Devils, culminating in that Stanley Cup win. He has reached 25-plus goals 6 times, and has amassed over 1,100 penalty minutes. He has played in the 3 finals, winning 2, made it to the conference final a grand total of 5 times. He's also on the infamous 1987 Team Canada Cup winning team, and he was the first person since Wayne Gretzky to win playoff MVP and be traded in the offseason. So, here we go. This is the team that Pierre Lacroix has put together. This is the type of team Marc Crawford wants to coach. It's a new town, but could they be seeing the same problems? Well, more so than it being a new town, it's actually more so a new conference than anything. Western Conference. New rivals, new schedules. This could hurt. Joe Sakic, the superb captain, has proven to be one of the best players in NHL history, but is now going into his 8th season. Despite no longer being in Quebec, he still wants to do what he was brought to this franchise to do, and that's to make them a winner. Owen Nolan has also been a long-time part of this rebuilding process, and has emerged as a superb forward. New sensation Peter Forsberg is coming off a top-notch rookie campaign. Mike Ricci is a tremendous two-way forward. He's become one of the team's most reliable leaders. Speaking of reliable, Scott Young has proven to be just that, as has Valeri Kamensky. And now, the addition of Claude Lemieux, he gives them that extra edge. The addition of Troy Murray, along with the likes of Andrei Kovalenko and Martin Ruchinski, give this forward core some depth, and especially does Adam Deadmarsh. And Stefan Yell will be working hard on the grind in his rookie year. And the man who was the future considerations of the Lindros trade, enforcer Chris Simon. Uwe Krupp now leads a revamped defensive core. Curtis Lasician has grown tremendously as a defenseman, as has Adam Foote. Sylvain Lefebvre has proven to be an asset in the past, and former Slavia star Alexei Gusarov adds a lot. While 10-year veteran Craig Willanen has been a big part of the growth of this club too. And speaking of growth, goalie Stéphane Fisset and young Jocelyn Thibault showed tremendous growth in the last year. And with that in mind, we are ready for opening nights. The first professional hockey game to be played in Denver since April 3rd, 1982 takes place on October 6, 1995 at the very same arena where that last game took place, the McNichols Sports Arena. However, the injury bug is already hitting with Scott Young and Martin Ruchinski out, and 2 defensemen Gusarov and Foote out of action. A sellout crowd of over 16,000 in attendance, and their opponents, the defending Western Conference champion, the Detroit Red Wings, led by team captain and superstar Stevie Yzerman, and the Russian Fire of Fedorov, Kozlov, Konstantinov, and Fetisov. Larionov is actually still in San Jose. Veteran superstar defenseman Paul Coffey, power forward Dino Ciccarelli, and is starting in net, seasoned vet all-star Mike Vernon, but young sensation Chris Osgood is close by. Fisek gets the start for the Avalanche. Claude Lemieux was penalized 42 seconds into the game, and Ciccarelli made them pay for that with a power play goal just 146 in. However, on the Avs power play midway in the first period, Kovalenko gets it back to Krupp, who sets up Kamensky for the first Colorado Avalanche goal. But a minute later, Lidstrom gave the Wings their lead back. In the second period, Craig Wallana installed a puck, and the Avs were clearing the penalty and launched it on goal, and the game was tied 2-2. If he's still playing outstanding in net, time was winding down. It's Krupp. It's Claude. It's Kamensky. Scoring with 3:53 to play, and Fisset would hold them in. The Avalanche win it 3-2. Oh, yes, making their big debut in Denver count. Kamensky was on fire with 2 goals. Fisset was great in net. Huey Krupp played a great game and was also diagnosed with a torn ACL. Yep, their top defenseman already hurt, and his season looks to be over. Oh boy, this could be a bad omen. Next up was a trip to La La Land to take on the great Gretzky and the Kings, and despite a 2-goal night from Sakic, 2 assists from Kamensky. If he set making 32 saves, the Avs would lose their first road game 4-2. And yikes! Next up was a wild outing with Mario Jágr, Ronnie franchise, and the Pens back home. The Avs led 2-0 and then 3-1, but trailed 4-3, and the game was tied 5-5 after 2 periods. Thibault made his first start, but was pulled after allowing 3 goals on 8 shots. Fisset took over and fared much better. Sakic scored with 3:47 to play, his 4th point of the night. 2 goals, 2 assists, but Jágr tied it just over a minute later, and that's how it would end 6-6. Adam Foote played after missing the first couple games, and the defense was suffering. And what a game for Adam Denmarsh with 2 goals. Kamensky stays hot as well, and Nolan with a goal and a helper. The Avs were praised for their team effort, but the goaltending and defense was seen as very weak here. The next game was a much more disciplined effort against Bourque, Neely, Oates, and a very good Boston Bruins club. Forsberg, after looking somewhat sluggish in the first few games, had 2 helpers. Fisset played another beauty, stopping 34 of 35 shots. But the next couple games weren't so good. They dropped a 3-1 loss on the road to a meh Capitals team, led by former Nordiques superstar Dale Hunter. Fisset played poorly, but despite Martin Rachitsky's return to the lineup, Thibault gets the start against the Blues, and the Avs lose 4-1, Nolan getting the lone goal. A bad game all around from everyone. Forsberg is also called into question. But then the Avalanche won on a roll, getting revenge on the Caps back home with a 4-2 win. Sakic with a goal and a helper, Young with 2 apples, Fisset stopping a lot of shots. Then they beat the lowly Ducks of Anaheim. Yes, as indeed, Mike Ricci was in the shadow of superstar Paul Kariya the whole game. He didn't register a single shot. The Avalanche defense as a whole played a lot better in the 3-1 win. Kamensky getting a goal and a helper each. Then on the road against Theo Fleury, Phil Housley, and a very disappointing flicker of a Flames team. Still looking for their first win. The Avs took it 3-2. Forsberg playing his best game of the year so far, and on all 3 goals, with a goal and 2 apples, and so did Owen Nolan, doing the same. Big game for the 2 stars, which is why people were shocked what took place the very next day. The Avalanche, indeed, felt the need to strengthen their defense due to Uwe Krupp's absence. They traded Owen Nolan to the San Jose Sharks on October 26th for Latvian import Sandy Zozelinch. Hockey analysts criticized the Avs for this trade, but their defense was suffering without Krupp, and felt this man was the best way to go. He has played parts of 3 seasons in the NHL. He's a fantastic offensive defenseman with some dynamic skills, and he has scored 43 goals, 73 assists for 116 points in 173 games. In his first official rookie year, he came in 5th in Calder Trophy voting and 9th in Norris Trophy voting as the league's top defenseman and played in the 1994 NHL All-Star Game. He was a huge part of the Sharks' shocking rise in the last couple of years and 2 big first-round playoff upsets. Yeah, I don't even know back then how people thought this was a bad move for the Avs. I mean, he was looking pretty sharp in his first 7 games this season, and he's 23 years old. As a defenseman who's already this good, you know he's going to get better. But now we move forward, and look at that. In his first game, Ozelinch has 2 assists, and is also a +2, as the Avs took on the league's best goalie in the Dominator Dominik Hasek, and notched 5 goals on him, and beating a struggling Sabre squad 5-4. Sakic again was great with 2 helpers, and Forsberg is scorching with another 3-point night, and Kovalenko plays a dandy as Chris Simon makes his first appearance this season, and now the Avs have won 4 in a row. Well, make that 5 in a row, humiliating Mike Modano and a pretty rough-looking Dallas Stars squad, 6-1 on the road. Sakic is a beast. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points. Ozelinch stays hot in the second game, 2 assists, and +3. Forsberg still hot with 2 assists. Kamensky has a huge night, a goal and 2 helpers for 3 points. Wallana plays great on the blue line. Ricci is in Modano's face, and Jocelyn Thibault gets his first win of the season in a very good outing, stopping 21 on 22 shots. And the Avs in October looking awesome on a really good 5-game win streak. Well, again, hockey has been revived in Denver, and fans are coming to the games. Lots of them, as a matter of fact.
And it helps the Avalanche are off to a great start, 7-3-1, as they seem to adjust to the Western Conference quite well so far, as they sit in first place right now, as indeed we are in the era of the 1-8 seeded format, the top 8 teams of each conference making the playoffs, with the division leaders taking the top 2 seeds. The Avs sit 1 point up on the Winnipeg Jets, who are off to a shockingly good start in their division. The biggest threat is, again, Gretzky and his Kings are also off to a surprisingly decent start. The Avalanche are averaging 3 goals a game, which isn't too bad, but considering the talent they have, some feel it should be a little more. Benedito! Team captain Joe Sakic is leading the way and out to a great start with 17 points in his first 11 games. Still surging forward as one of the NHL's best playmakers, averaging 1.5 points per game, with some huge performances to boot, leading his team in scoring in the month of October. Valeri Kamensky, who has played very well since the days in Quebec, is playing even above his usual production. 13 points, 4 goals, 9 assists, an excellent +6. While Peter Forsberg, who's out to somewhat of an iffy start, exploded as the month progressed and is back to full form, also scoring 13 points, leading his team in assists with 10 for the month. Owen Nolan played pretty well before the trade. Claude Lemieux has played the odd good game, but hasn't found his full groove yet. Adam Denmarsh is a nice surprise, coming up in key situations. Mike Ricci, who's capable of producing offensively, is more being relied on in defensive situations, and has done very well in that regard. Scott Young is looking pretty solid. Andrei Kovalenko is good in certain games. Brian Raczynski has had some decent games since returning from injury. Veteran Troy Murray and Ricky Stefaniel are doing their best killing penalties, while Chris Simon is good at causing penalties that they have to kill. The Avs defense started the year with injuries, and losing a group to injury in the first game was the man who's supposed to lead this core. Not a good thing. But veteran Craig Willan stepped up huge in his absence and was far and away the Avs' best defenseman this month and led their team with a +7, providing tremendous leadership in the process. Oddly enough, the big new acquisition, Sandy Zozlich, in his 2 games, with 2 assists in each of those games, leads the team's defense scoring in 4 points. Gusarov has dealt with injuries, but has looked really good. Adam Foote is picking up his game, but Curtis Lyshyshin has been somewhat lackluster to start, while Sylvain Lefebvre has not played very well, and John Clem in the action he has seen has played pretty good. Stefan Vise was excellent in net this month, and had many games where he faced a great deal of shots and was cool under pressure. Really good 6-2-1 record, and an excellent 2.35 goals against average to go with a .916 save percentage was also tremendous, and his confidence was growing. Thibault made 3 appearances, and while he looked pretty good in his 1 win, otherwise he hasn't looked all that sharp with a lackluster 3.37 goals against average and a pretty bad 8.64 save percentage. The Avs continued their winning ways in starting in November, extending their win streak to 8 games. A 6-1 win over Calgary began the month in style. Claude Lemieux plays his best game so far this year with 2 goals, and Forsberg remains arguably the NHL's hottest player with 3 assists. Troy Murray also played a great game, as did Raczynski, while Thibault was excellent, stopping 29 shots. Forsberg and Lemieux stayed hot with a 5-2 win against Solani, Tkachuk, and the Jets in Winnipeg. Pete had a monster 4-point night with a notch and 3 apples, while Lemieux had 2 goals and an assist for 3 points. Raczynski continues to play well, too. And they continue to roll against Roenick, Chelios, Savard, and the Blackhawks in Chicago. A monster 7-3 win. Joe Sakic, 5 points, 2 goals, 3 assists, a 3-point night for Chris Simon. Yes, their enforcer could break out when people least expected it. Someone in the vein of a Dave Semenko in that regard, and a goal and 2 apples for him. The Avs win streak, however, came to an abrupt end, but they didn't lose. As a matter of fact, in a game against the Stars, Darcy Wacklick, their goaltender, was a wall, and Troy Murray got the lone goal in a 1-1 tie. But the Avs defense was superb themselves, and Ricci again going toe-to-toe with Modano. And now the Avs are unbeaten, however, in 9. Make that 10. Their 9th win in 10 games, they trounced McGillney and the Canucks, bombarding their all-star goalie Kirk McLean, and an 8-4 win on the road. And Peter Forsberg is going from rookie sensation to sophomore superstar this year. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points. And Claude Lemieux has really come alive in November and has a goal and 2 helpers for 3 points. Denmarsh, a big game with 2 goals. Kamensky with 2 helpers. As did Raczynski and Ozolinsh still looking sharp. Lefebvre was a presence out there too. What a win for the Avs. 10 games, no losses. But then a shocking turn of events. The Ducks, who are showing some improvement, destroy the Avalanche 7-3. Thibault plays pretty badly in net. Forsberg played his worst game of the year so far. Lemieux was also pretty bad, and a bittersweet night for Scott Young, who had 2 goals and an assist for 3 points. But it was a minor setback as they go unbeaten in the next 6 games. Yes,
First, another win over the failing Flames. Fiset is bombarded and stops 44 shots in a great performance. Sakic and Forsberg each had a goal and an assist. Back home, they take apart Calgary again 5-2. Fiset once again playing superbly, 28 goals. Wolanin and Lemieux with 2 points each. The former playing outstanding defense. However, the Avs fell apart late against the sad-looking Oilers thanks to their biggest star, Doug Weight, down 3-1 and scored 2 goals. And the Avs had to settle for a tie there, despite Fiset playing a great game yet again, stopping 36 shots as Kamensky, Ricci, and Sakic each scored a goal. But they again got the better of the Blackhawks and lit up their star goaltender Ed Belfour real good in a 6-2 win. Kamensky played a huge game, 2 goals and an assist for 3 points. Roenick had to deal with Ricci, and it wasn't pretty, and he also had 2 assists. The big games from Sakic, Lynch, and Kovalenko helped a great deal. And speaking of Kovalenko, the Avs were trailing 2-0 against the Habs in the familiar terrain of the Montreal Forum. He scored a goal late in the second period, and then he and Sakic assisted on Oslynch's goal with 1:52 left to play to fight to a 2-2 tie. And then the Avs played a visit to the island with former teammate Wendell Clark and destroyed the sad-looking Islanders 7-3. And boy, oh boy, were the big guns firing on all cylinders on this night. Forsberg is now getting early MVP talk. 1 goal, 4 helpers, 5 points. And Claude Lemieux, his 5th career hat trick, his first in 3 years, as an assist for a 4-point night. Sakic has 2 goals and a helper too. Kamensky, 3 apples. Oh man, what a major night for the Avalanche. And they suffered just 1 loss in 17 games. But things, however, came to a halt when they visited Stevens, Niedermeyer, Brodeur, and the defending Cup champion Devils. A fun back-and-forth game with solid goaltending, great defense, came to overtime, and while Simon and Sakic had a goal and a helper each, they lose in OT 4-3 to end the month of November. An excellent November, though. A record of 8-2-3, bringing their overall record to 15-5-4 for 34 points. Still first overall in the Western Conference. 4 points ahead of Central Division leaders, the Red Wings. And they have a good lead on their biggest threat in the Pacific Division, still the LA Kings by 7 points. And they're looking every bit as good as they did last season in Quebec. This team is working cohesively to try and achieve some success. And to top it off, they improved their goals per game average from 3 in October to nearly 4.7 this month. And leading the way is the Swedish sensation, phenomenon Peter Forsberg. 6 goals, a team-leading 17 assists, 23 points, more than 1.5 points a game. He was coming up huge for the Avalanche and looked like a machine up there with his beautiful setups and exciting plays. He was also a big +9 on top of all that. Joe Sakic was also still playing great hockey, 8 goals, 12 assists for 20 points, and a +5 second in scoring. He's rolling through this season, leading by example as he's done for so long. And after an uneventful October, Claude Lemieux has come alive. A team leading 10 goals, and adding that 7 assists for 17 points, using that trademark peskiness and clutch scoring ability to drive to the net, and it was a +9, third in scoring. And the trade was looking like it was paying off. Well, Kamensky was tremendous as well with 14 points. Kovalenko and Raczynski had some huge gains and were benefiting the Avs quite well. Mike Ricci may have lost a bit of a scoring touch, but was still aggressive and forceful out there. Scott Young was doing pretty good. Troy Murray had a really good month, coming up big in many games, as did Adam Deadmarsh. Well, Chris Simon managed to come up big when he least expected it, while Stefan Yell still playing his role pretty well. On the defensive side of things, the Avs showed tremendous improvement since acquiring Oslynch, who tied the team lead in points by a defenseman with 9 total. 4 goals and 5 assists, while Craig Wolanin continues to shine. He's having a good year so far. 2 goals, 7 assists for 9 points in November. But wow, what a turnaround for Sylvain Lefebvre. A monster +15, by far the team leader this month after a lackluster first month in October. He really showed he can command a given play. Had a great deal of presence out there, shifting momentum with the puck. This is exactly why he became a key part of this team. Well, also Curtis Lasician showed a vast turnaround this month to boot, was a +10. And as someone who is, well, stuck with this club since the bad days, it's nice to see him on a team where he can thrive at last. Adam Foote also played some really good games this month. Gooseroff, despite injuries, played pretty well, as did John Clem. And now the goaltenders. Fiset once again got 6 wins this month and didn't lose a single game and had a tie with a 6-0-1 record. His goals against average and save percentage went down, but still had really good numbers with a 2.68 and 909 respectively. He had grown significantly over the years and was looking pretty darn good. Tebow's numbers improved too. He was 2-2-2 with a much better 2.91 goals against average and a so-so 80 save percentage. But little did anyone know the major shakeup the Avs goaltending situation was about to undergo.
December, however, began with another loss to Marc Messier and the Rangers on the road 5-3, and while Sandy Sosalich had a goal and assist in a loss, Lemieux and Lashisha both had a rough night. If he allowed 3 goals in 14 minutes and was pulled from the game, Thibault would finish the game, which would be his last game played as a member of the Colorado Avalanche. On December 2nd, the Avs had the night off, but a rather infamous game took place that night at the Forum in Montreal. The Detroit Red Wings completely humiliated and obliterated the Canadiens 11-1. The Russian Five, Stevie Y, Paul Coffey, and Greg Johnson were unstoppable. This Habs team started the year 0-5-0, and they hired former Habs player Mario Tremblay, who was a very popular player amongst Habs fans in his day, and a new GM, another former Hab, Ray Jean-Houle. Neither man had experience at any level of hockey when it came to those jobs. The Habs got hot, however. The superstar goaltender Patrick Roy was playing superbly despite what revisionist, unresearched BS tries to tell you. Granted, yes, the last few games, including this one, they were a disaster. Tremblay was becoming a tyrant drunk on power, as he and Watt never saw eye to eye on much. As a matter of fact, Patrick snickered when he was told of Tremblay's hiring back in October, and it's been all downhill ever since for their relationship, even resulting in an alleged incident not long before this game, where Tremblay aggressively fired shots at Watt during practice, resulting in a heated confrontation. Also, Tremblay's hatred for Red Wings head coach Scotty Bowman fueled his fire. Because Bowman was his coach during his playing days, he tried to make it personal, even saying as such in the media, "Yeah, you're welcome for the Stanley Cup rings there, Tremblay." Anyway, the Habs lost to the Wings 2 games prior to this, but only by a slight margin of 3-2. Watt played great, stopping 33 shots. See what I did there? But Bowman changed up his strategy and decided, hey, if Tremblay was going to make this personal, well, Bowman can play that game, and he can play it better than anyone. He decided to teach his former pupil a lesson in being an actual hockey coach. The Habs trailed 5-1 after one period, and Watt allegedly suggested to Tremblay during the intermission that he should be pulled from the game. Tremblay refused. Detroit continued to dominate in this rather infamous shot that you're looking at, so when Watt stopped the shot, sarcastically raised his arms in celebration to the jeering Montreal fans, practically giving them a middle finger. Finally, when the score was 9-1, he was pulled, allowing 9 goals on 26 shots. A visibly frustrated, angry, and humiliated Watt went to the bench and crossed paths with a cold-looking Tremblay, who stared him down. He then went back and leaned over to team president Ronald Corey, who was seated front row, and said something along the lines of, "I played my last game as a Hab." The following day, the Avs suffered their 3rd straight loss, a 7-6 loss to the Dallas Stars. The Avs led 6-5 in the 3rd period, but fell apart despite another incredible outing from Peter Forsberg, 4 points, a goal and 3 apples, and 2 goals from Andrei Kovalenko. Vise played very poorly, and Ned Oselin perhaps played his worst game so far as a member of the Avalanche. Sakic and Young also had a rough night. Meanwhile, back in Montreal, a meeting was arranged between Watt and the Habs and the upper brass to see if they could work this thing out. But they could not. Patrick Waugh's days in Montreal were numbered. Then on the 5th, the Avs ended their losing streak emphatically with a 12-2 win over the pathetic San Jose Sharks as Owen Nolan returned to Denver, and he had a terrible night to boot. And Forsberg, oh my goodness, again repeating his performance from the prior game with 4 points. Kamensky, first career hat trick and has an assist for 4 points, career night for him, and is off to the best start of his career. Sakic came alive again, hey, 2 goals, yep, 2 assists, yep, for 4, Scott Young rebounded from his poor performance with 2 goals and a helper for 3 points. Adam Denmarsh had a notch and 2 apples for 3. Chris Simon played well. Lashish and Clement Foot all were tremendous. And Fisset played well on net with 27 saves. And Andrei Kovalenko stayed hot with a 3-point night, and Raczynski played very well. But that would be their last game as well, as the very next day, the Avs made a monster move. On December 6, 1995, the Avalanche sent backup goalie Jocelyn Thibault to the Montreal Canadiens, along with Andrei Kovalenko, who was actually having a really good season so far, and Martin Raczynski, who played very well in many games, in exchange for 2A forward and Habs captain Mike Keane and superstar goaltender Patrick Roy. Let's take a look at the man who I feel doesn't get enough love he deserves sometimes, especially in this trade, Mike Keane. He was an undrafted forward who had to claw his way into the league, and he finally made it to the roster of the Montreal Canadiens for the 1988-89 season, and played in his first Stanley Cup final. While not known for his scoring ability, he wasn't exactly inept in that department either. He has 269 points over 500 career games. It was an impressive plus 65 in 8 seasons, but is mainly known for his defensive abilities and leadership. He did unleash a scoring touch, however, with 13 assists and 15 points in Montreal's Stanley Cup win in 1993.
getting himself an engraving on the Grail and a nice little ring in the process. He was named captain going into the 1995-96 season, but his days are more or less numbered. When as team captain, he said he didn't feel the need to learn French. Of course, the Montreal media swarmed him for that one, and he was also less than impressive on ice this season. But was still an asset as a grinder and a penalty killer, and with Troy Murray currently injured, he'll help in that regard. This was a good deal. And of course, St. Patrick. Numero 33, Patrick Roy. After 10 years in Montreal, he is now a member of the Colorado Avalanche. And in this past decade, he has been one of the best goalies in the entire league. All but one season, he has gotten votes for the Vezina Trophy and has won it 3 times in 89, 90, and 92. Those same seasons, he was a first-team All-Star. He's a second-team All-Star in 1988 and 91. He has won the Jennings Trophy along with Brian Hayward 3 times and himself by himself, totaling 4 for least goals against. A tremendous record of 289 wins, 176 losses, and 66 ties. He was only 25 wins behind Habs great Jacques Plante for all-time wins with the Habs, and with very good 2.78 goals against average, a 904 save percentage with 29 shutouts, and has played in 6 NHL All-Star games. But some wondered why Colorado was the team that went for him, as Fiset was playing well, but here's the thing. I have to believe the main reason for Wall's acquisition is his playoff experience. 70 playoff wins was third all-time at this point. In his rookie year, he played like a seasoned veteran and led the underdog Habs to the Cup, winning his first playoff MVP with the Conn Smythe Trophy. He helped the Habs to another Cup final appearance in 1989, and then in 1993, he cemented himself as an all-time clutch goaltender when the Habs won a record 10 overtime games in the playoffs en route to the Stanley Cup, while again taking the Conn Smythe Trophy. However, the last couple of years have not been kind. He suffered his first opening round exit in 1994 and missed the playoffs for the first time last year in 1995, the only year he didn't garner any votes for the Vezina. But here's another thing, as good as Fiset has been playing, when Patrick Roy comes available, unless you're a team with an elite star goaltender, and with all due respect to Fiset, he was not at that point. You take him. You take the guy who's available if he's around. And also, Pierre Lacroix, Colorado's GM, was Roy's agent at one time. So this deal was brokered probably easier than some might think. So, here we go. December 7, 1995. Patrick Roy plays his 552nd career game in first as a member of the Avalanche. As they host the lowly Oilers at home, despite the good season the Avs are having, they still low on the totem pole in terms of media and press coverage in Denver. But the Roy acquisition has brought a lot of media attention and was the most storied trade in the league since the Lindros trade. But alas, it didn't go well. He stopped 26 to 30 shots. It would be a 5-3 loss that included an empty netter. And the reception for Roy was actually pretty cold. Forsberg and Kamensky each had 3 points with a goal and 2 helpers. So the Roy era in Colorado is not off to a great start. And now the Avs lost 4 of 5. But then a road trip to Ontario began with a 7-3 win over rookie Denny Alfredson and the Sad Sens. Fiset got the start in this one, and Forsberg is becoming a bona fide star. Oh my god. 5 points, 2 goals, 3 assists. Hey. Also, Claude Lemieux returned to the lineup after missing the last couple of games. Had a goal and a helper. Sakic, Clem, and Kamensky play great, while Scott Youngs also stays hot. And Lasician and Foot play great on defense, and Ozelinch missed this game. Also, Lefebvre is out of action. Roy got the start against Dougie Gilmour and the Leafs team that was off to a bad start but seemed to be getting it together. But the old St. Patrick was back on this one, getting his 290th career win and first with the Avalanche and stopped 30 shots. Was named for star of the game. Wallon and Deadmarsh and Kamensky each had a goal and a helper, and Yell played an all-around great game. But things then go south once again as the Avs would lose 3 straight. What is happening here? Juan Hasek put on a show in Buffalo, but the Sabres got the upset and beat them 4-3. Forsberg had 2 assists, and Lefebvre returned. Fiset got the start against the Whalers, and what? The Whalers? Oh my goodness, they didn't play well. Brendan Shanahan lit him up pretty good. Mike Keane got both Avalanche goals, however, in the 4-2 loss. They then return home to host an improving Canucks club. Kirk McLean is red hot in net. Wall falls to 1-3-0 as a member of the Avalanche. Kamensky has a brutal night, as did Ozelinch in his return. This has been a puzzling turn of events, but injuries on their defense certainly haven't been helping much, and Wall's facing over 30 shots a game. But things turn around, and the month the Avs return to form and go unbeaten in 5 games. First on the road, they get revenge on Edmonton. Sakic 2 goals, Forsberg 3 assists, Waugh 28 saves, Avalanche 4-1 win. The next game is again just a so-so blue squad. The Avs bombard Grant Fuhrer, and the defense gives Waugh some breathing room in this one. As the Avs squeak by with a 2-1 win, Deadmarsh with a goal and a helper, and Troy Murray returned to the lineup. Fiset got the start against a faltering Kings squad and was sensational, stopping 36 shots in a 2-2 tie. Sakic scored both goals, making individual efforts, both making the highlight reels on TSN. And on the road against the sinking Sharks, the Avs bounced them again, this time 5-1, showing little mercy while stopping 28 shots. Kamensky having a great game with 2 goals. Ozlin's return to form, and Gusarov played a beauty. And at home, they get the better of the Leafs again. Sakic with a goal and 2 apples, 3 points. Scott Young, who's having a great month, 3 assists. Waugh, 32 saves on 34 shots. He has now won his last 4 games, and the Avs end the calendar year of 1995 on a hot streak. Well, the Avs went 7-6-1 in December. Not terrible, but a far cry from their first 2 months. They did end the month red hot, and slipped to second, however, in the Western Conference behind the Red Wings, who only lost 1 game all month. And they're 7 points ahead, however. But, well, due to the Kings slipping, the Avs still have a very comfortable lead in first place in the Pacific Division, now 12 points ahead. The Avs were still averaging 4 goals a game at this point as well. Peter Forsberg yet again leads the team in scoring for the second straight month and was again unstoppable. He cooled down a little compared to earlier in the month, but was still great. 5 goals, team-leading 18 assists, 23 points. He is also an excellent plus 10. Conversations about league MVP are including Forsberg at this point, which not many expected. Joe Sakic continued to shine with the team-leading 10 goals, adding 9 assists for 19 points. He was again second in team scoring. Valeri Kamensky's career year continues to see him stay hot with 7 goals, 10 assists for 17 points. And Scott Young also had a great month with 15 points. Claude Lemieux had consistency issues, while Adam Denmarsh continues to be a hidden weapon in the opposition that seems to underestimate. Mike Ricci had a bit of a poor month. In addition, Mike Keane saw himself get off to a shaky start, but he's starting to find his groove. Rene Corbet saw some action this month and was actually also quite good in many games, while Chris Simon was proven to be an asset as the team's enforcer. Stefan Yell still excelling, while Troy Murray is finding his groove again. Curtis Lasician was outstanding this month, where it wasn't so easy for the Colorado defense with numerous injuries, but Curtis held the fort and was incredible, plus 16. He was having a career year at this point. He also tied Craig Wolanin, who missed a few games, in defenseman scoring with 6 points. Wolanin was also playing well, and Adam Foote had a pretty good month to boot. Gusarov was getting good when healthy. Lefebvre injury issues, but still good. While Ozlinch also missed some games, but overall didn't play very well. Also, John Clem played many great games this month and proving to be very underrated on this Avs core. Well, the big gamble of acquiring superstar Patrick Waugh looked to be starting to pay off. Despite the iffy start, he ended the month with winning his 4 straight starts and had a great month shaking off the chip on his shoulder that Montreal had put on him. A very good 2.13 goals against average, a fantastic .928 save percentage, 5-3-0 record had they finally found a missing piece of the puzzle. Well, Fiset struggled a bit, but it was still really good in a couple games. 2-2-1 record, a pretty bad 3.97 goals against average, and a poor 8.861 save percentage. And they have people thinking they got Waugh in the nick of time. Tebow's 1 game this month before the trade was nothing really to write home about. And it was an unhappy new year, however, for the Avalanche, beginning the month of January, going winless in 3 straight. Juan Brodeur put on a show, however, as the Avs dropped a 1-0 loss to the defending champion Devils at home. And this was interesting, as this was the first time since January 27, 1994, that the Avs, well, back then still the Nordiques, were shut out. Almost 2 years. They then let a 2-goal lead slip and then settled for a 2-2 tie with Lindros, Leclerc, Renberg, the LOD line, and the Flyers. Denmarsh had a goal and a helper, while Young had 2 apples. However, Mike Gardner and Larry Murphy got the better of Waugh and the Avalanche, giving the Leafs a 5-2 dominance over the Avs at the Gardens. Corbett and Sakic getting the goals in this one. However, the Avs looked much better, going unbeaten in their next 4. A visit to Boston gave the Avalanche a 3-0 win. Fiset playing amazingly, getting his first shutout of the year, whopping 37 saves. Sakic, Ozlinch, Denmarsh each had 2 points. Waugh had a rough night against the Panthers and trailing 4-2 as the third period was counting down. With 7:51 to play, Scott Young's second goal of the game closed the gap to a goal, while Wolanen's second assist of the game, setting up minor league call-up Paul Brosseau's goal a minute later, allowed the 22-year-old to be the hero for this one. They fought to a 4-4 tie. Forsberg has grown pretty cold, however, in his production this month, while Kamensky and Lemieux have played quite poorly. Denmarsh has been a beast, however, and Sakic is carrying an unfair load once again. Also, Troy Murray is hurt again, Mike Ricci is out of action, and more injuries to the defense, this time with Adam Foote. There's a wild shootout at home, however, against Calgary, while both teams gave opposing goalies a hard night. The Avs had a 4-3 lead as the game was winding down, as Kamensky broke his slump with 2 huge goals. Another big night for Sakic with a goal and 2 helpers. However, Germain Titov scored with 45 seconds left for the Flames to tie it. As they were vastly improving, they settled for a 4-4 tie. But after a rough tie, well, the Avs bounced back on the road against Pittsburgh. Against the powerhouse Pens, Claude Lemieux broke his slump quite emphatically. A hat trick, plus an assist for 4 points. Forsberg seemed re-energized with 2 assists, while with sensational 34 saves in a 5-2 win. On January 17, 1996, however, the Avalanche went on the road to Detroit, and for Patrick Roy, he had to face the ghosts of December 2nd, 1995 as he gets to start in this game. The game was tied 2-2 in the third, and Roy was playing pretty well, as Edmartian Young had the goals for the Avalanche, but he wouldn't get his revenge on this night. 3 goals is much less than 9, however, and a tight competitive 3-2 loss. The Wings are dominating the competition as of late. And then came the NHL All-Star break. The All-Star game took place on January 20th, 1996 in Boston. And Joe Sakic garnered his 6th selection, as the only year he has not represented his team was his rookie year, plus last year's strike-shortened season where there was no All-Star game. Forsberg is making his first appearance in the mid-season Superstar Showdown. Neither registered a point, however, in a 5-4 Western Conference loss. It was back to business, however, on January 22nd as the lowly Islanders and former Nordique Wendell Clark gave the Avs a lot to handle, but the Avs skated to a 4-3 win as Lemieux and Forsberg each had a goal and an assist. Waugh stopped 31 shots while Murray and Foote returned to the lineup, but now they've lost Curtis Leschyshyn. The Avs let another 2-goal lead slip and settled for a 2-2 tie with the Canucks. Murray assisted on both goals. Fiset stopped 30 shots, and while they fired 47 on Red Hawk Corey Hirsch. And even the dead last Sharks gave a lot to handle as, the Colorado blew a 3-0 lead in the third period, but this time Kamensky scored an OT to give the Avs the win. Yelena Forsberg with 2 assists each, while Gusarov played excellently, was a +3, and Waugh's coming under fire for this one, however. To end the month on January 31st, the Avs suffered an upset loss on the road to Anaheim against the Ducks, bombarding Guy Hebert. But he stopped 39 shots, Waugh stopped 31, but the Avs' big guns were firing blanks on this one. Oh boy, not a great month for the Avs. They seem to hit with consistency issues and finished 4-4-4 in 12 games, but are still second in the conference, but the Red Wings seem to be running away with first overall. But the Avs, despite their struggles, still lead the Pacific Division comfortably, 15 points up on now Winnipeg and Vancouver, but now streaking Calgary is moving fast. Injuries to their defense and other key players, including some of their top defensive forwards, weren't helping. And also, despite firing many shots a game, they can't seem to solve goalies who they should normally be able to light up. And this month, they only averaged 2 3/4 goals per game, as now concern about this team is now abounding in the Rockies. Joe Sakic was the only player on the Avalanche to average more than a point a game this month. 6 goals, 7 assists for 13 points, as he continued to be what he has been for 8 seasons now. That's a model of consistency, hard work, and a tried and true captain. Forsberg started the new year pretty cold, but actually was picking things up as the month went on, and he had 2 goals and 7 assists for 9 points. Claude Lemieux started pretty cold too, but did better as time went on, with 5 goals, 3 assists for 8 points, while Scott Young continued to be a solid contributor, 8 points, notching 4 on each end. But this was not a great month for Avs forward in scoring, but more credit has to be given to Adam Deadmarsh and what he brings to this team. Mike Ricci missed most of the month with an injury. Valery Kamensky was very inconsistent throughout the month, cooling down in a big way. Also, Stefan Yelpras played the weakest month in his role. Mike Keane was hit or miss. Troy Murray had injury issues again, but played well in some games. And Warren Reichel actually played really well in the games he played. But Crawford is facing criticism for not keeping this bunch motivated, and indeed something needs to change. The Avs are in a comfortable spot, but they shouldn't settle for complacency. It was also a rough month for the Avalanche blue line core, as the strange irony is the man who was often injured, Alexei Gusarov, was the one who stayed healthy this month and was their best blue liner, and the team was just a +4, far cry from the numbers Lefebvre and Leschyshyn had, but was part of a 4-way tie also for defensive scoring with 3 points, as he had a goal and 2 helpers. Wolanin had 3 assists, but didn't have a great month. Ozlich and Lefebvre were hit or miss, also notching 3 assists each, rounding out the defensive scoring lead. Leschyshyn and Foote dealt with injuries, and both played okay when they were healthy, while John Clem had a pretty bad month. So now Crawford is faced with more problems. As for the goaltenders, not a great month for Waugh with a 3-4-1 record, but also not a terrible month despite his record. His numbers go down, despite a pretty good 2.84 goals against average and a good .907 save percentage. He is facing many shots a game. The Avs defense is letting him down in many ways.
He stood on his head, however, in many games, but of course, since the trade, he's been under the microscope and facing critics. While Stefan Fiset was amazing this month, undefeated with a win and 3 ties, was superb in his games, an incredible 1.88 goals against average, and a huge 9.35 save percentage, plus his first shutout of the year. But the NHL media was planting a goaltending controversy in Colorado, saying Waugh is still not up to par what he can truly do, while Fiset has been great this month. To begin February, Teemu Selanne and the upstart Jets gave the Avalanche a lot to handle, but the Avs got the 6-4 win. Claude Lemieux came up huge with a big game, 2 goals and a helper for 3 points, while Forsberg and Kamensky each had 2 assists, and were also an excellent +3. But the very next game against the Rangers, the Avs got the exclamation point they've been looking for. A 7-1 throttling at home against this excellent New York team.
They were messing around. Sakic, oh boy. What can this guy not do? 2 goals and an assist for 3 points. 3 more players notched 3 points, a goal and 2 helpers each. Ozolinsh, Kamensky, and Young. And despite the one-sided score, the Rangers didn't take it easy on Waugh, who had to stop 42 of 43 shots in what is probably his best game in an Avalanche uniform so far. But on February 5th, 1996, came a big game for Waugh in Denver. Oh yes, here they come. His former team, headed up by the coach he despises, Mario Tremblay, and the Montreal Canadiens. Media coverage of this game was all around pretty big, especially when it became officially known Waugh would be starting. Waugh seemed to have a fierce determination from the first shot he faced. At the exact midway point of the first, Scott Young was set up by Sakic and Forsberg for a power play marker. And St. Patrick was turning everything back, everything his former teammates were throwing at him. Stars such as Recchi, Turgeon, and Danfus could not solve the man they knew oh so well. It was 1-0 after 1. But in the second period, rookie Saku Koivu took a loose puck, made a great individual effort, and was the one to get the Habs on the board. It was 1-1. On the other end, however, the Avs couldn't get much going against their former teammate Jocelyn Thibault, who was also playing magnificently in his own right. Since the trade and joining the Habs, Thibault has been a tremendous 11-4-1 with 2 shutouts, a 2.80 goals against average, and an excellent 9.17 save percentage. The Habs, since Waugh's last game, are 14-9-5. Pretty darn good if you ask me. As before this game, a fair portion of media pundits and analysts were actually suggesting the Habs were going to win this trade. Sorry. As Kovalenko and Raczynski played well for the most part too. And before this game, Waugh was good 9-7-1, but not exactly a great record. He does have a better save percentage with 9.22. While Thibault has more wins over him and shutouts, Waugh has played very well. But other problems with the team have perhaps kept him from thriving further. The Avs are 12-8-5 since the trade, by no means terrible, but below par of their first 2 months of the season. But now we go into the third period of this big showdown. So here we go. Period number 3. The Avs stun Thibault as 38 seconds in, Claude Lemieux and Forsberg set up Kamensky for a goal. Then 50 seconds later, a bad mistake by the Habs leads Troy Murray to score, and just like that, it's 3-1. Waugh is brilliant going forward, however, but Brian Savage gets a goal to close the gap for the Habs at 3-2 at the midway point of the third, but 1:13 later, Sakic to Deadmarsh to Ozolinsh. It's 4-2. The star goalie proves his worth. The Avalanche get this one 4-2 and have now won 3 straight. Waugh lifts whatever weight that may have been on his shoulders off of him. What a game. 37 saves and was the game's first star. Forsberg and Sakic stay hot with 2 assists each, and to top it off, and what many would, I guess you could say, they would call these days a mic drop moment. Waugh took the game puck after the game was over and rolled the puck towards Habs head coach Mario Tremblay and skated away smiling while Tremblay had that trademark scowl. And while Waugh would say that he regretted the way he handled things in his final game in Montreal, more so how he reacted to the fans, that is, and towards Ronald Corey, he says he does not regret this. This was all smiles during a post-game press conference, still feeling Mario was a catalyst for his departure and the subsequent trade. It was clear that the disdain towards his now former coach hadn't disappeared until this game. Next up was a game against a surprisingly pretty good Tampa Bay Lightning team led by Roman Hamrlik, and this one was back and forth in 4-4 tie. Sakic playing yet another beauty as MVP talks are heading his way once again. A goal and 2 assists for 3 points. The Avs big guns after a rough January are firing on all cylinders again as Kamensky has already surpassed his point total in January. The Avs are still unbeaten this month in 4 games. However, they still had trouble with this mediocre Oilers club. This time at home, the Avs had a 2-1 lead and late in the third, as their January curse of running into hot goalies who aren't exactly stars was abounding once again. Jason Mazzotti turned back the Colorado onslaught 30 times. The Whalers tied it with 3:17 to play and won it in overtime. Sakic had a goal and a helper in the loss. The next game was a huge win over the Flyers, as the Avs have now only lost one of their last 6. It was a 5-3 win. Peter Forsberg notches his first career hat trick, while Claude Lemieux had a big night with a goal and 2 assists for 3 points. Fiset stopped 26 of 29 shots. The Lightning again took the fight to the Avs, and this time the Avs suffered a loss. This one on the road, 4-2. Sakic and Keane getting the goals in this one. Waugh faced 39 shots, stopping 35. Mike Ricci returned to the lineup after a lengthy absence. Then the next game they made the drive to Miami for a game against the Florida Panthers. And what an outing it was. Down 3-0 in the first period. Crawford still stuck with Fiset, even though they were trailed 4-1 after the first. The Avs crawled their way to make a comeback. Ozolinsh slapping the tying goal home with 1:34 left in regulation. And in OT, Mike Keane was the hero just 55 seconds in, as Ozo and Sakic set him up for the goal. Ozo, Sakic, Deadmarsh, and Kamensky each had a goal and an assist. Despite a rough first period, Fiset barred the door the rest of the way, stopping a total of 30 shots. On February 19, 1996, the Avs were set to begin a 4-game homestand, this time against the Oilers, and the Oilers have taken the fight to the Avs this past year as they ruined Patrick Waugh's debut. Despite bolstering tremendous talent, Doug Weight, this Oilers team isn't all that good. Waugh got the start after 2 consecutive losses in his last 2 outings, and it looks bad as the Avs trailed 2-0 in the first period, but a Forsberg power play marker cut the lead in half. The Avs trailed 2-1 after 1. In the second, Lucian tied the game with a rare goal. Simon and Forsberg struck in the power play. The Avs led 4-2, but the Oilers got one back. It was 4-3 after 2. 22 seconds into the third period, Kamensky scored and restored the 2-goal lead, but the Oilers tied it within the next 3:12. A power play goal from Kamensky, and then Forsberg getting his second hat trick of the year in an utterly insane 5-point night gives the Avalanche a 7-5 win, and Kamensky 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points at market, 4 apples for Sakic. And while it wasn't Waugh's best game, it was still a big one for him. He became just the 12th goalie in NHL history to record 300 career wins. He's the second youngest player to do so, Terry Sawchuk only being younger. On this list, you have more than 35 combined Stanley Cups on this list, with all but Andy Moog, who was still active at the time as a Hall of Famer. A huge accomplishment for Waugh in what has been the craziest year of his career. But they go undefeated in this homestand, winning the next 3 games, bringing their win streak to 5. A dominant 6-2 win over a sad-looking Kings squad that was days away from trading Gretzky. And Forsberg was the man again here, assisting on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goals. Oh, wow. Kamensky, Foot, and Ozolinsh each had a goal and a helper as the Avs defense gave Fiset a lot of breathing room. It was a large team effort to get a 4-2 win, however, the next game over the lowly Senators, as Forsberg, Young, Reichel, and Lefebvre scored the goals, while a determined Sens hit a barrage of shots on Waugh, who would stop 43 in the win. And the Mighty Ducks gave the Avs a mighty fight as they recently acquired Jet superstar Teemu Selanne. But the Avs squeaked by with a 3-2 win, Gusarov playing a huge game with 3 assists, while Ozolinsh dismissed the last couple games. Lemieux, Kamensky, and Reichel got the goals in this one. But the Avs' hot streak was halted by a very good Blackhawks team during a leap year showdown, and the Avs did have a 3-2 lead after 2 periods thanks to a tremendous 3-point night from Foot with a goal and 2 assists, and again, not known for his scoring, and another big game from Gusarov. But the Hawks came back in the third and won 4-3. Kamensky also got his 30th goal this season, the first time he has reached that mark. Well, a vast improvement from the month prior, or the last couple months prior. Looking more like the team they were earlier in the season. 9-3-1 in February, moving to 35-18-10 on the year, and they still had their division lead by a huge 17 points, meaning they still hang on to that second place spot, but it won't be easy catching the Red Wings for the first overall, and they're having a historic season themselves, and they lead the conference by 16 points up on the Avs. Either way, Crawford got things going again and brought it together for this club. They look cohesive and consistent and had broken their slumps. This month, they averaged nearly 4.5 goals a game. Again, another vast improvement over the prior month. Forsberg is more devastating than the Terminator, leading his team in scoring again, 9 goals. A team leading 16 assists, 25 points, nearly 2 points a game.
a very impressive +9. He was truly earning the nickname Peter the Great. Hey, good old Burnaby Joe. Still playing tremendously. 7 goals, 15 helpers, 22 points. Coming in second in team scoring for this month. While Kamensky triples his totals from last month, has returned to form, tying Forsberg with the team leading 9 goals, adding 9 helpers, notching 18 points. Claude Lemieux was continuing to play really well, while Adam Denmarsh continued to thrive as a secret weapon. Scott Young had some rough outings, but overall was producing fairly well. Mike Keene's importance in this club was growing, while Mike Ricci returned from injury in the nick of time, as the team was now without Stefan Yell for several games. Troy Murray also had a solid month, as Chris Simon again emerged with the odd big game here and there. The Avs forwards are coming together after a rough month prior. Forsberg's +9 was a team best, and Alexei Kucherov, who's been staying healthy lately, tied Forsberg for the team lead in that regard. Impressive indeed, as he had a tremendous amount all around, and even racked up a fair bit of points. So did Adam Foote, who was superb, and not known for scoring, but still doing what he does on the blue line and doing it very well. The Avs defense overall was fantastic, and Oselinch, despite missing a couple games, averaged a point a game in the 11 he played with 4 goals and 7 assists and had a really good month. Both Lefebvre and Clem were playing very well, as Curtis Leschyshyn had a couple rough outings. However, the only Avs defenseman that seemed to struggle often in February was the one who had been the most consistent all year. That's veteran Craig Wolanin. Either way, as a complete unit, this may be the best they've looked all season. The goalies, however, while playing well, are hoping to improve certain things, especially Waugh, who is his own worst critic and yet faces even more critics. A good 5-3-0 record, his goals against average was only 200 higher than the last month, so more or less the same, but his save percentage went up significantly from .907 to .916. He's still playing great, sadly just letting in more goals than he'd like. Fiset, however, is still undefeated, but his numbers aren't all that great otherwise. An .870 save percentage, which is not terrible, and a meh 3.33 goals against average. Again, not awful, but he still wins. Basically, Waugh still playing very well, but not at the standard of his Vezina days. Fiset can win, but could still stand to improve on certain things. To begin March, however, the Avalanche got revenge against the Blackhawks in the second part of their home-and-home series with a 5-3 win. A huge game from Claude Lemieux, 2 goals and a helper, and he reached 30 goals this season, the first time he's reached that mark since the 92-93 season. Then they hosted the struggling Leafs as Patrick Waugh stops all 26 shots, achieving his 30th career shutout and first as a member of the Avalanche. Sakic had a goal and a helper, while Forsberg had 2 assists, and Wolanin played a beauty. They lose the next 2 games, however, and in what would be their saddest and most pathetic loss of the year, they dropped one to the San Jose Sharks, who'd only won 14 games all year before this one, and they lost to them at home. Fiset was awful, 5 goals on 18 shots, 4 being pulled in the second period, and as is the story with many Avs losses this year, they bombarded a goalie who's not exactly an elite netminder. In this case, it was Wade Flaherty, with 57 shots as he stopped 54. The Avalanche would lose 5-3. Stefan Yell returned to the lineup. Sakic was in on all 3 goals with a goal and 2 helpers, and Fiset lost for the first time since December the 15th. The Avs took this loss very hard, and it wasn't going to get any easier as they faced the other end of the Western Conference spectrum, the red-hot Red Wings. Waugh still haunted by them. In a 4-2 loss at home, Sakic and Forsberg with the goals. The Avs have rebounded on the road against the Canucks, a team that has shown a big spark in the last several weeks. Despite Trevor Linden's hat-trick, the Avs took this one 7-5. Fiset was bombarded himself with 39 shots, stopping 34. 2 goals for Lemieux, big games from Ozo, Wolanin, and Kamensky. But a historic night for Peter Forsberg, 4 assists, and becomes just the 5th Swedish-born hockey player to reach 100 points in a season, a true star-making year for Peter the Great, joining the likes of Kent Nilsson, who was the first to accomplish this feat and had done it twice with the Calgary Flames. The second player to do so was Mats Naslund with the Montreal Canadiens in 1985-86 with 110 points. He was actually Forsberg's teammate at the 94 Olympics for the gold medal. Another one of Forsberg's former Olympic teammates, Håkan Loob, accomplished this once in Calgary in a memorable campaign in 1987-88 with 106 points. And the before-mentioned Mats Sundin did this with the Nordiques back in 1992-93 with a huge 114 points. And Forsberg still has many games to play as he sits at 102. The Ducks gave the Avalanche a lot to handle once again, and thanks to red-hot goalie Guy Hebert, the Ducks shut out the Avs 4-0. Another tough loss to go with their humiliation at the hands of the Sharks. The Avs, however, were pretty pathetic here, an undisciplined bunch on this night, including a team brawl where a frustrated Waugh got into a lot of trouble. Also a rough night for Sakic and Denmarsh.
But the Avalanche shook off the frustration and shined with 3 straight wins over Pacific Division rivals. First, an 8-1 thrashing against the Oilers. Sakic a banner night from Burnaby's favorite son. A goal, 4 assists, 5 points, and reaches 100 points for the 4th time in his great career. Scott Young, however, who had been playing quite poorly as of late, had a goal and 2 helpers for 3 points. Also great games from Forsberg, Lynch, Simon, and Ricci. Wall stopped 27 of 28 shots, playing much better than this previous outing. They visited Vancouver again, and it was a large group effort all around, from top to bottom. Sakic got 2 assists, Wall stopped 27 shots in a 4-3 win, thanks to Chris Simon's game winner midway through the 3rd period. Then it was a trip to La La Land to take on the now Gretzky-less Kings, a huge night for Kamensky. 2nd hat-trick of the year, and Forsberg with 3 helpers. John Clem also played great, and Fisset playing tremendously with 30 saves on 32 shots. The day of the Kings game, however, there was also trade deadline day as the Avs made a couple small moves, but only this one would have any bearing on this season. On March 20th, 1996, they sent a 6th-round draft pick from 1996 to the struggling Sabres for role player veteran Dave Hannon. 14 NHL seasons, 803 games, a move from Lacroix and Crawford to add further depth and experience to their lower 6 core. And with Troy Murray having injury issues, Hannon has been a pretty good penalty killer in recent years and was a fan favorite during parts of his 5 seasons in Buffalo. He has a bit of a gritty side to him. He spent most of his career in Pittsburgh, but also spent time in Toronto. Had a brief stint in Edmonton that resulted in a Stanley Cup, which is part of the Paul Coffey-Craig Simpson trade. Got himself a ring, and the only hat-trick of his career while there, too, despite not playing in the finals. While his minus 58 is, quite alarming, he has improved a lot on that while in Buffalo, and he did play for a lot of bad teams. But despite not being a scoring forward, he isn't exactly a slouch in that department with 300 career points. He is also a major part of Canada's silver medal win at the 1992 Olympics. However, the next game, Patrick Waugh is still haunted by the Red Wings. However, at least the coach was smart enough to pull him from the game after allowing the 5th goal. The Avs would lose 7-0, and the Red Wings defensive system held the Avs just 15 shots on goal. Waugh has now allowed 23 goals in 5 games against the Red Wings. That's more than 4.5 a game. Then came a home-and-home series with the Jets. On the road, they took a 5-2 win. Sakic had 2 goals. Corbet had 2 assists. Forsberg had 1 each. Lasician was a +3. Waugh was sensational, stopping 33 of 35 shots. For the next game at home, Nikolai Hobby-Bulin was the red-hot goaltender for the Jets, turning back 33 saves himself. And the Avs lose 3-1, Sakic getting the lone goal. And they ended the month getting some revenge on the San Jose Sharks for even dreaming of beating them, 8-3. Sandy Lynch had a monster night against his former team with 4 assists. Joe Sakic and Claude Lemieux each had 3 points, 2 goals and a helper, and a notch and 2 apples respectively. Forsberg had 2 goals, big nights from Kamensky and Young as well as Wolanin. Pretty good way to end the month. Well, solid month for the Avalanche, 8-5-0 in 13 games, moving to 43-23-10 for 96 points. And, well, they have indeed had very little trouble. They clinched the Pacific Division and, of course, the playoffs, meaning they will be the 2nd-seeded team in this postseason. While they're not going to be able to catch the Red Wings, this is their 2nd straight division title, and only the 3rd in their NHL history, dating back, of course, to Quebec's first year in the league in 1979-80. But both years, they won the division. In 1985-86 and 1994-95 last season, they were upset in the first round. The whole playoff picture in the West is still pretty tight, so the Avs will have to wait a little while to see who their opponent will be, and they themselves still have 6 games to play. This month, the Avs average slightly above 4 goals a game. And Joe Sakic was at it again, top of his game, leading the team in scoring in March. 9 goals, 11 assists, 20 points. He was full in command, showed determination to make people take this team as a serious contender and forget about the past. Peter Forsberg's star-making season continues, 5 goals. Team leading 14 assists for 19 points, 2nd in team scoring. Claude Lemieux is having one of the best years of his decade-long career. Again, a great month, 9 goals, 6 assists, 15 points, 3rd in scoring. His goals tied the team lead with Sakic. But Kamensky played really good for the most part. Scott Young struggled a fair bit this month, while Adam Deadmarsh remains a model of consistency for this club. Mike Ricci may have had his best all-around month with the club here in March, while Stefan Yell seems to have bounced back from his injury issues. Mike Keane, however, seemed to have had some trouble, but Troy Murray was playing solid on the grind, and Chris Simon was lending a hand in some big games when he wasn't dropping the gloves, of course. Adam Foote was really on his game more than he'd ever been in his career. He led the team with a +8 this month, and indeed was their best all-around defenseman in the month of March, and really grown in his game. Sandy Lynch again led all defensemen in scoring with 11 points, a goal and 10 helpers. Curtis Lasician's career year was continuing with a banner March. Veteran Craig Willan had bounced back after a poor February. John Clem also had a good month, as Lefebvre played pretty decent, while Gusarov did have his struggles, but overall it was still good. Is this Avs defensive core, however, strong enough for the postseason? Waugh was on his game still, solid 6 wins, while his save percentage went down slightly. It was still an excellent .908, and his goals against average was .259, also really good. He also recorded his first shutout as a member of the Avalanche. He said, however, did win a couple games, but he also lost a couple and actually played pretty bad. He had an .857 save percentage and a goals against average of 4.31. Ouch. Any media pundits still think that this is the guy that should go into the playoffs? Yeah, I didn't think so. Even though the Avs have punched their ticket and clinched their seed, they still have 6 games to go, so let's see how this season will end. April didn't start all that well for the Avs, dropping a 6-3 loss to Gretzky, Pronger, Zezel, and the Blues. A rough night for Waugh. Sakic launching 2 helpers. The Blues were actually minus superstar Brett Hull. But the Avs went rolling through the competition the next 4 games. Another easy win over the Sharks. So easy, in fact, the defense, led by Willanen, who played another great game, gave Waugh an easy night as he only faced 13 shots. Stefan Yell, not known for scoring, had a career night with 2 goals, while Mike Ricci, who has picked up his scoring touch a bit lately, had 2 assists. Ozolinsh had 1 each in a 5-1 win as Dave Hannon made his debut for the Avs. And best of all, Uwe Krupp, who hasn't played since opening night, has returned to the lineup and played a really good game to boot. This is big for the Avalanche with the playoffs approaching. Next up on the road was the Dallas Stars. Easy 4-1 win over the sad-looking Stars team. Sakic scored 2 goals. With that, he reached a career high 50 on the year. His career high was previously 48, which he reached twice in 91 and 93. Troy Murray had 2 assists, as did Chris Simon, while Scott Young had a goal and an apple each, while the defense looked solid once again. Then, back home, it was a streaking Ducks team who were trying to make a run for the final playoff spots, and had been pretty hot with this new combo of Solani and Korea. Well, the Avs stopped them in their tracks with a monster 7-3 win. Mike Keane was the unlikely superstar of the night, and again, not known for his offense. He was fantastic. 2 goals, a helper, for a big 3-point night. Speaking of 3 points, making it 3 more apples for Forsberg, while Kaminsky had 2 goals. Ricci played a great game, while Lannon was leading the defense. Yell Lemieux played superbly. And in the next game, Waugh gets a break if Bissett gets to start, and he puts on a pretty big show with 44 saves. His best game in a long while, as the Avs defense has a bit of a misstep on this night, even though the Fae played very well, as they get back to the Blues for their previous loss, winning 3-2. Sakic had a goal and assist. Young with 2 helpers. With that win, the Avs tied their franchise record with wins in the season, 47 points with 104, both set back in 1992-93. But in the final game of the season, they were not able to break the record as they took on an LA Kings team with pretty much nothing to lose. The Avs trailed 4-3 with about 5 minutes left as Ozolinsh shook the building up with his late shorthanded goal to tie it. But Yannick Perreault won it for the Kings in OT, ruining Chris Simon's big night with his 2 goals. Sakic finished the season with 2 more assists. And not the way the Avs want to end the season, but either way, it's time to focus on the postseason. Hey, not a bad finish to the season, going 4-2-0 in the final 6 games in April. The Avs finished 47-25-10, Pacific Division champions and second best record in the Western Conference, again tying their franchise best in wins and points. The Avs stayed the course in their final month, averaging 4 goals a game. And new town, new conference, but the Avs still stayed as good as expected to be. And their opponents this postseason is, of course, the number 7 seed, which will be the Vancouver Canucks. Joe Sakic led the team in scoring with another big month, 3 goals, 6 assists for 9 points in 6 games, and led the team in scoring in 4 to 7 months, and is the only player to be among the top scorers in every month this season. In second is a bit of a shocker. Enforcer Chris Simon is becoming a major fan favorite, and as he has all season, come up big in the odd game. This month he had 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points, second in team scoring. Tied for third is defenseman Sandy Ozolinsh, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points, and tying him was Scott Young, who after some rough outings ended the season very strong. 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points, not very good, +5. Peter Forsberg has played a couple really good games. That actually slowed down significantly, as this was the only month of the season he wasn't among the top scorers, as he was, of course, the only other one other than Sakic to lead the team 3 other months in this season. Claude Lemieux also played a pretty poor stretch. Denmarsh missed a few games due to injury, but Warren Reichel actually played pretty well in these games. Mike Keane finished the season very strong, as did Troy Murray, while Dave Hannon was solid in a couple games. Mike Ricci, however, looks like he's primed for the postseason. He's the type of guy they'll need for that. And Stefan Yell, again, excels in his role and progressively gets better as the season goes on. On the defensive side of things, it's a foregone conclusion at this point that Ozolinsh led the defense in scoring. I mean, he only did it all but once this season.
But for the first time since November and the second time this season, Sylvain Lefebvre leads the team in plus-minus this month with a +8. He was absolutely excellent. The Avs defensive core looked amazing in this final stretch. The return of UA Group was definitely noticed and very timely. Craig Wolanin showed he still got a lot to offer. Floyd Lasician played well. Gustarov looked excellent. Clem, however, did not play this month. Either way, this Avalanche blue line has looked the most reliable it has all year. The month, however, did not end all that well for Waugh. He had some pretty rough outings, even with the defense protecting him well. He still won 3 games at 5 starts. His goals against average was a below average 3.16, and his save percentage a pretty bad 8.58. He said only played 1 game, but he won it, and he was excellent. A 9.57 save percentage, only allowing 2 goals. And some of the naysayers are coming out still saying Waugh will be eaten alive in the postseason, and he just doesn't have it anymore.
Well, it has been a successful first regular season in Denver for this franchise, but now we take a look at the grand tallies, the final numbers. Now, as we go over this comparison, keep in mind the numbers themselves will be significantly different from the year prior either way, as the year prior was a 48-game season. Last season, the Nordiques were, however, first in the entire league in goals. This year, the Avs were second. And the Penguins dominated that category, but they still scored a huge 326, just 1 more than the first overall Detroit Red Wings. Last year, for least goals against, they were 10th in the league in a 26 team. This year, they inched up to 9th, allowing 240. Still good, but some say not good enough. Their power play was excellent this year prior, 3rd best in the league, and they remain in that same spot this year behind Detroit in 2nd and Pittsburgh with the league best. Kamensky, however, was 7th in the league with 18 power play goals. Sakic was tied for 8 with 17. Their penalty kill last year was an average 14th. Not all that stellar, but this year they did vastly improve on that, moving all the way up to 7th, and acquiring more depth with the likes of Murray and Keane help, as did Stefan Yell all season long. And also Sakic's 6 shorthanded goals, tied for 2nd in the league, certainly didn't hurt either. So the Avs checked off pretty much all the boxes here. Joe Sakic in his 8th season had the best of his career. Personal highs across the board, 51 goals, his first 50-goal season, 69 assists, beating his career high of 65 set in 91-92, and a massive 120 points, beating out the 109 he scored in 1990-91. What a season for the captain. He was also career high plus 14. And then Peter Forsberg, the superstar sophomore and last year's Calder Trophy winner, truly was able to show off what great he can really do out there. 30 goals, a team-leading 86 assists for 116 points. He emerged as one of the NHL's best this year and would stay in that category for quite some time. He was also a very good plus 26. Coming in 3rd on team scoring was Valeri Kamensky. 38 goals, 47 assists for 85 points, his best NHL season so far, as he proved to be key on the Avs power play, and overall showed what a dynamic player he really could be. These 3 may have been the top scorers, but we have to give a lot of credit to Claude Lemieux, who regained his scoring touch, carrying the momentum from his playoff MVP run with the Devils last year, scored 39 goals, the 2nd best total of his career, and had over 70 points, and was a hustler out there. His clutch play and all-around peskiness, of course. The unsung hero of the team, however, was definitely Adam Deadmarsh. Always underestimated and not afraid to throw his weight around a bit, too. He's a huge asset to the team and notched over 20 goals. Scott Young also proved he could still contribute and had his 4th 20-goal season. Mike Ricci lost his scoring touch this year, but also missed 20 games, but he's still excellent on the grind and defensive play up front in many games, facing up to top forwards in the league. Stefan Yell was tremendous as well with his work on the grind, and the acquisition of Mike Keane from the Habs proved to work more often than not, and Troy Murray was also very solid in his role as a veteran component. But the biggest surprise, however, this year was tough guy Chris Simon, who again could come up big when you least expected. Overall, a very deep forward core going into the postseason. Joe Sakic finished 3rd in the league in scoring, the best mark of his career. This is the 4th time he has finished in the top 10 in his career. He finished 4th in the shortened season last year. His 51 goals was 5th best in the league. His overall total was only behind Penguin sensations Jaromir Jagr and Mario Lemieux in 2nd and 1st respectively, who are just putting up psychotic numbers. Peter Forsberg finished 5th in scoring with 116 points. His 86 assists were 4th best in the league, again behind more Penguin stars, Jagr in 3rd and Francis and Lemieux tied for 1st. This is the first time since the 1987-88 season you had Avs/Nords players, had 2 of them finish in the top 10 in scoring, and the first time since 1983-84 to finish in the top 5, and on both occasions, it was indeed Hall of Famers Peter Stastny and Michel Goulet. And yes, to no surprise, Sandy Soz-Lynch was the leader among all Avs defensemen in scoring. 13 goals, 37 assists, and 50 points. It's a risky deal parting with star forward Owen Nolan, but the risk was worth the reward in this case. But what a year for Curtis Lasician. a long-suffering defenseman and 8-year veteran who, along with Sakic, has suffered through those awful Nordiques teams, hurting some of his progression in the process. But he had a career year this year, led the entire team with a plus 32, and overall was their best all-around defenseman, I would say. Craig Wolanin, however, a veteran of the NHL for 10 seasons now, who also suffered through those awful years and even had a couple of those bad years in New Jersey before even going to Quebec, proved to be a consistent asset in many different ways and had an excellent year. Hard-nosed big man Adam Foote, however, was the breakout star of this defensive core, and he added size and aggression and deserves a lot of credit. While Sylvain Lefebvre also proved to be worth more than the money that he was valued at, and proved he was very underrated. Clement Gusarov missed many games, but also proved to be important to this core. Uwe Kripp's injury, as well as other injury issues, those few inconsistencies made it difficult for this core to come together, but overall, they did just that. And they're looking pretty strong and heading into the postseason. And hey, look at that. Lecition was 6th in the entire league with a plus 32, and the only Avalanche player to make the cut on a list dominated by the Red Wings Russian 5 core, as well as others, and he even managed to finish a spot ahead of one of the all-time greats in defenseman Ray Bourque of Boston. Last year, he actually finished 3rd in the entire league during the 48-game strike shortened season. And now to the goaltenders. The trade that shook up the hockey world. Patrick Roy was a solid 22-15-1 with a good 2.68 goals against average and a really good .909 save percentage and a shutout. Fiset had the same amount of wins, but had a better winning percentage than Roy and just less 4 games than him. Easy for me to say, less than 4 games for him. 22, 6, and 7, and some people were still using this as a basis for argument. He was a very good 2.93 goals against average, a decent 8.98 save percentage, and a shutout. It's clearly, again, the obvious reason why Lacroix went for his former client: playoff experience. They sacrificed 2 productive forwards and an up-and-coming goalie to get him. Yes, I know Kovalenko and Richitsky weren't game changers, but they were both, especially in the case of the former, having a really good season, and they still played well in Montreal. You think they're just going to sit him out on a whim because of a few dolts in the media? Ha! Yeah, say what you want about Crawford, but he knows better. Thibault, before the trade, was a meh 3-4-2, a mediocre 3.01 goals against average, and a subpar 8.74 save percentage. He did, however, go on to play quite well in Montreal this season, as the Habs made the playoffs as the 5th-place team in the East. Neither goaltender made the top 10 in goals against average, save percentage, or shutouts, but Patrick Roy's 22 wins with the Avs, combined with the 12 he had in Montreal, still tied him for 3rd best in the entire league, with 34 wins. He was tied with the man who idolized him growing up, Devil star Martin Brodeur, as well as Bill Ranford, who after many lean years in Edmonton was traded to Boston, where he seemed to be excelling again. This is the 5th time Roy has reached the top 5 in this category in his career. And now let's look at award recognition. And this is utterly ridiculous. The Colorado Avalanche, the 2nd best point total in the entire NHL, didn't have a single finalist for any major awards. How on earth is Joe Sakic in this season not even a finalist for the Hart Trophy? I'm not saying Mario Lemieux didn't deserve to win, but it seemed like safe picks such as Mark Messier took spots that belonged to Sakic. Burnaby Joe was tied for 6, while Forsberg finished a ridiculous 13th place with just 8 votes. They've also both received Lady Byng Trophy votes for excellence in sportsmanship, faring slightly better, with Sakic finishing 5th and Forsberg coming in 11th. Stefan Yell got 2 votes for the Calder as the league's top rookie. Claude Lemieux got a good chunk of votes for the Selke Trophy, coming in 6th place, his best showing for that award as the league's top defensive forward. And Roy actually got 5 votes for the Vezina, coming in 9th. In the 10th time in 11 seasons he has received votes for that award. And not one single Avalanche defenseman registered a vote for the Norris. Look, I know the defensemen had their issues all year, but how on earth is Curtis Lecition not recognized for a single vote, yet Roman Hamrlik, who was a minus 24, finishes 7th. And to top it off, not one Avalanche player on the year-end All-Star team. But indeed, that does it for our look at Part 1 of the 1996 Colorado Avalanche, covering the regular season and all that led to it. Check out Part 2 coming soon as they venture into playoff time. So until next time, like the video, please share and subscribe to the channel, and until next time, I'll see ya!